Mate, I know this would be absolutely killing you, knowing that we do have a few players' prices and you can't fill the spreadsheet with all of them, that's for sure, mate. And we have a bunch of prices, and the game looks like could be out. It was potentially going to be out tonight. Now looking more like tomorrow, mate. How's it all going with you? And we've got some information as well. Hopefully, or, sorry, it may end up that way around that buying power as well with the prices that have come out. Just give us a rundown on everything NRL Fantasy right now.
Mate, it's been chaos and drip fed to us, and we've been lapping it up, but also that just leaves us wanting more, to be honest. So we've been getting player price reveals slowly over the last few days, as most of you be watching would know. It's ended up that we figured out the magic number is probably about 13.35k per point, which means that we've probably got about 300k more buying power than we did last year, even though we had the same salary cap. Because last year it was 13.75, I think, something like that. So instead of stacking up on a bunch of these really cheap guys, we might be able to afford somebody in the mid bracket like that might let us get a Fisher Harris instead of a cheap guy.
Yeah, and we were kind of sitting there contemplating, oh, maybe that does mean there's a 22nd player because 300k would fit another cheapie, but it looks like that's not the case. Again, the game hasn't come out as yet, but seems to be we've got people in the know around the traps that do have that information. But 300k, man, obviously that magic number does change round to round, and but from the start is when it matters for us, right? In setting up that squad, and then we just adjust as that goes along. It's been a fun few days, especially in that private group with you nerds going crazy in there.
Yeah, it's been good. We thought we had it all figured out about 2 days in. We're like, oh, these two prices are about the same. So they've just rounded them. It looks like it's 13.6. This person's cheap. Monster's cheap for no reason. Why is that? And then it came out that the rest were actually that price. And they just revealed some expensive guys to start off with. But yeah, it's not too much of an adjustment for clearing half. It's only about a point more, but yeah, they'll still be good on what they can produce.
Definitely, mate. And once we do have the game and all the prices, we'll get you on here and going through your favorite part is seeing where all those prices do shake out. And it sounds like those two maybe because of injuries. There's a slight little difference for them. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd say so. There's a couple that have gone up because their role, like Howarth, is a little bit more expensive than we would have hoped. There's Haas and there's Cleary. Moses is up for some reason
Hmm.
by what'll be about 40k, I think, 40 or 50k. And then you've got guys like Munro who are actually about 3 points cheaper and priced at 300. So that'll be really nice. I guess we'll just see how much there is because a couple of years back there's a fair bit of it. I remember the Turbo and the Schuster days where it
Hmm.
was way off what we thought, and we were going, "What's happening here?" And then the next year they really cooled down on it. So maybe it'll be a bit halfway in between this year.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll laugh them before, guys, that we'd be doing this preview here of the Roosters on with Thursday. Arvo is going to post soon as soon as we get this done. But we're laughing that the game would come out and we'd just transition straight into a reaction. That'd be pretty fun, but we'll. It seems like it may not happen. But Roosters, guys, we've got plenty of interesting players in this side. There's a fair bit of movement. There's a few guns in this side in Tedesco, Watson, and Angus Crichton as well. And we'll kick it off with our fullback in Tedesco, made a terrific bounce back season for him with a 55. And I suppose the first thing I think of with Teddy is who is going to be the Teddy in the wing fullback slot this year is probably my question. But where do you start with Tedesco, and is there anyone standing out as the Teddy of last year?
Oh, there's always going to be a wing fullback that stands up and does it. Tedesco was last year. I think he's probably not going to be the same this year, just because there's so much disruption to that team. I've got him down still as over a 50 average, but yeah, it'll be hard to back up that 55.2 average from last year. unless he's basically being shoveled the ball and told to do it all, which is a possibility. But yeah, I think with losing a bit of go forward with guys like Terrell May and Warrior Hargreaves, it could be a little bit tougher for him, let alone some of these outside backs that are missing. So I think it could be a little bit more scattered, his scoring, maybe a little bit more turbo like, 28 and then an 80 rather than consistency in the middle. But yeah, I'm keen to see how it pans out for Tedesco. I'd say the Tedesco of this year could be someone like a Latrell Mitchell, but he's already expensive, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yes, it may not be from round one, but the Roosters, now that we know some information here around the 13 players for the minor buys, the Roosters actually have a very, very interesting buy schedule, don't they? With round 14 being the standalone one to be fair, but round 17 there as well. Um, how's it going to affect these guys in your opinion from the Roosters standpoint?
It's really, really good for non-fantasy guys. Now, the rule that was revealed to us last night is that, yeah, in minor buy rounds as well as those big origin weeks where there's like 7 teams away, you'll only be playing a starting 13 there as well. So if you have, say, a non-origin Tedesco possibly, and Toya's still scoring well, and Nafahu White's playing lock by then and getting sort of mid 40s or whatever. If you take a few of these guys, it really reduces the strain on the rest of your team for guys that you might not have picked otherwise in order to fit the points with the schedule. It probably makes it a little bit easier, a little bit less intense than some years. We've previously had spreadsheets going here, there, and everywhere, and I'm all into that, but it can go very wrong very quick. So it's a matter of opinion whether you like it or not. But one thing that does come out of it is that we will approach it differently this year, and the Roosters are a very good team to look to get through that period a little easier.
Yeah, I see it in a couple of different ways with this schedule. When it's three buys in a very short succession, or if you were to take out the 10 and they've got two in non-major, non-important bye weeks, they're just standalone. That is all well and good, but it's still two games that they miss in that time, isn't it? Where there's a lot of teams that you'll see that do only have the one bye in that whole period. Hey, so it's an interesting one.
Yeah, there's some teams that have got them really spread out. I think Titans are one, I think, but I think there's probably about four others that seem to have like about 20 weeks between their first and their last bye, like a really good spread. So these guys with the condensed middles, I think the Roosters is one of the most condensed. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 3 out of 8 weeks in a row. So if you're trying to hold someone from round one to go through that, yeah, it'll really help the origin rounds. But outside of that, it might actually be a bit annoying. So
Yeah.
maybe the time to load up on those guys is that round 11, round 12, so that you miss that little bit of extra dent in your score that you would have otherwise if you having all those guys so long. And
Mm. Yeah, they seem like a team that it could work. It could really be helpful, but it may be a bit annoying at the same time with those two in close succession. And a team last year that comes to mind was the Dolphins. It was 14 and 18 for them, and it was minor buy and then standalone buy in that time. And it was helpful in one way, but then it was a hindrance when that week came. I seemed to struggle a bit more in those 2 weeks because I had loaded up on a few, but then I did a bit better in the others. So yeah, I think there's strategies both ways that can work for you, and it may just depend on how pricey those guys are, or can you sit them on the bench pretty comfortably and cover their position. So there's gonna be lots to it for sure, but very much an interesting team to start with, given they don't have a bye until round 10. So Dom Young and Daniel Tupou are the two guys in this side that won't be changed, which is, well, it hasn't been changed, which is hard to say about a few other positions made. But the centers is where we're going to get our value, and likely to see Rob Toya and Billy Smith at this stage is probably what we're seeing. And you've got Mark Nawanga in contention as well in that center spot. And he was actually priced fairly well, wasn't he?
yeah, 350 wasn't it?
Yeah,
That
350.
was about a 26 price point. So I think he can do that. His reserve grade stats weren't quite as high as Toya's. Toya looks like he could be like maybe not an Eero because
Yeah.
that's crazy, but maybe an Ethan Strange of last year. But yeah, The Wanganita was say he had, I think, a low to mid 40s average in reserve grade when he got released early and played a few games. And
Mm,
yeah, they priced him up a little bit from base price because he had that one game at the end of the year. Yeah, 43. There you go.
mm. Yeah, he'll be interesting if he gets that spot at 350 for sure. There's plenty of talent, doesn't he? And if it does go the way that you've got it here in Toya and Smith, tell us, yeah, Toya's just going to be locked and loaded, right? There's probably no reason to not start with him.
Sawyer is probably one of the two cheapies that if you don't have him in your team when it's starting, it's like, why? Like, who are you trying to buy that is going to have a better role and a better chance for money making than them in their position? So, yeah, Toya has huge value. Preserve grade average close to 50 in the centres, tackle breaks galore, lots of meters, and his base price. You just want guys like that in your team. That's what fantasy's about.
Yeah, yeah, youngster, but plenty of big raps from Mr. Robbo, and someone that definitely has plenty of raps from Robbo still, even with all the injuries, is Billy Smith. And what price are you expecting him at, and what number would you need to see to buy him in your side?
I think I would need to see if it has a five in front of it, I'm out. If it
Oh
has a
yeah.
four in front of it, I'll think about it, particularly if it's low. And if it's three, you'll just probably have a stab at it because he has scored pretty well in the past. But
Mm.
yeah, he does have a bit of injury risk with his history. And yeah, well, they have a replacement there in the wings if something does happen or he has a few down games. So I think he is somebody that definitely has value, but it strongly depends on where he sits. Average 39, that's what we probably expect. If he can play like that, he can average high 30s and even maybe higher in this last couple of years with the centers getting more ball. Yeah. So if he's priced at what would a 30 price be? 30 times 13 plus a bit. Yeah,
Expecting,
so just over 400K would be a 30 price point.
yes.
So yeah, I'd say maybe if he's more than about 450K, I'd say it's too much for me to really want to go him. But below that, I would seriously consider.
Yeah. Yeah, guys like this that have a lot of injuries under their belt, they need to have a decently sized amount of value near that 10 points to jump in because yeah, the injuries and the eight with an injury in game can definitely hurt. But mate, that other cheapie you're talking about that you'd be silly not to start with, it sounds like that might be Sandon Smith.
Yeah, like you're missing Joe Manu, you're missing Luke Keary, who's gone. Poor Sam Walker did his ACL. Sualii's gone, so he won't kick goals. The only competition for kicking and goals is Chad Townsend, and Sandon has a better career goal kicking record than Townsend, and he hasn't kicked as much recently. So if you've got basically someone who played off the bench most of last year, coming on for Cheese or Connor Watson at hooker a little bit, he's going to be 250K and he's going to be a starting halfback. That's a buy. Like it has to go horrifically wrong for that to not work out.
Yep. Makes yeah, it's pretty simple with him. He's done it before, as you said there, 38.8 average at starting half, and could potentially, earn a good chance of adding those goals. We've seen Teddy goal kick, and it's not beautiful. Chatty's okay as well, so Sandon's the man, and really just the potential to lose his spot is very low with all those injuries, right? So it's seems a very, very safe pick, and we need those cheapies. And let's load it up with Sandon Smith. Not too much else to say. And mate, Chad Townsend coming over to what you should say is a better side than the Cows. Averaged 36 last year. Is there any chance he could be a mid 40s guy like he has been in the past, or at times with the Cows, or is this a just an age thing, and he's going to split some, that role with Sandon?
I'd say it's probably an age thing a little bit. Also, did and doesn't really kick a lot. Sandon will kick more
Mm,
than him, I would expect. So the Roosters probably will score a lot better as they work into the season once they figure out what to do with this exploded team. So there's a world where he actually does have a little bit of value, but later on, maybe he drops some and then he makes it back later on. That could be a time and place to look out for. Maybe he's one of the guys that you buy in round 11 after that first buy. But yeah, it has to be for the right price.
Definitely, Maiden. With the loss of Hargraves, Terrell May, how do we see the minute split going between all of these middles?
It's going to be different. So you're missing huge minutes from May and then not huge minutes from May when he threw temper tantrum about it not having enough minutes.
Depending on the
Lindsay
day.
Collins is going to pick up Lindsay Collins is going to pick up some slack, but he has a terrible fantasy PPM and is only ever relevant once. He's probably going to sit around 40 average. Spencer Leniu has a little bit of interest for me, but he strikes me as that guy who can come on and really devastate a team, not really a humongous workhorse. We saw that he started off the Panthers 3, 4 years ago with like a 1.1 ppm in 25 minutes and would come on and batter them. He's slowed down a bit now and increased minutes a bit, but I don't see it being of 10 points of value. I'd say there'll be a bit there, but yeah, there's also word that, well, Whyte could be starting, whether that's at lock or whether they push stuff around. So maybe Leniu doesn't even get heaps of extra minutes based on what the Roosters want him to do in their team.
Yeah, 45 is a lot, isn't it? It probably could just still stick with 40 even with the loss and yeah, you
Mm.
have guys like Butcher that can just play minutes off the bench. Like seems to be a guy that starting he can play really big minutes. Bench he can still play, that 50 or so and can kind of cannibalize someone like Lenu's chances of getting those bigger minutes and he can continue to be that impact guy with Butcher being the lock and load safety guy. Although they moved him around so much last year, didn't they? And it was like, oh, we don't really trust him that much. Played low minutes, and then back to 80 on the edge, and then 50 in the middle. It was all over the shop, and with Natty Boy. But the Fahu White, you've currently got him for 35 minutes. Talk us through that one. Are you wanting him getting closer to the start, and would that include another 10 to 15 minutes, or would you still think a start that probably doesn't increase too much for him?
I think him starting would definitely help. I think it pushes around what they would do with their bench interchange. If he does start, I would expect probably at least 45 minutes, and then they'd move Nat Butcher through the rotation, and then that would drop Lenny. That's another really decent probability, I reckon, that comes out of this scenario. Either you've got Lenu has a few minutes and White doesn't, or White starts, Butcher moves around, takes minutes off Lenu, and Lenu just sits at 35, 40 minutes again. So, yeah, if he's starting, very happy to buy him. If he's on the bench, don't know if the minutes will work out for him, but still remains to be seen.
Yeah, it could just it doesn't feel perfect, does it, to start? Like he's obviously very cheap, averaging that 31.1. It just feels like with two guys gone, they haven't replaced them with anyone, and you've got a guy that's playing for his country, had moments last year where he did really well. It was similar to that with Terrell May. He's probably had a few more moments and is more of a I don't know an easier fantasy point threat. Like we're thinking about captaining him to start the year, so not the same player as White. He's a little bit more hit and miss, which is what we see with I suppose everyone bar Isaiah Yo, Haas, these top sort of Tarpany, these top guys. You're gonna have ups and downs, and I think with White, it does feel like just you lob him in your side. There will be weeks where he goes run a ball 50. There'll be other weeks where he gets the 40 minutes and a 29, and it's a little bit annoying. But when he's priced at 31, he's going to probably have more of those 45 to 50 minute games because of the pedigree and the growth that he's going to show. And when they have impact guys like Lenu and you got Collins that's a little bit older, it can become pretty simple to see that he's the next guy that's going to be more that alpha controlling. He can control the middle, not have to be an impact guy. So there's a lot to say that you can just roll with him even if he was to start on the bench in round one. Like that's kind of what I'm getting at. If he was to start round one on the bench, can you still just buy him, or is it just easier to wait as well?
Yeah, well,
Because that's
it
a
depends how
chance.
long
Like
it
you've got it
takes.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it really depends on how they view Linu, to be honest, because Butcher will play big minutes because he can. Radley and Angus will play 80 if they're on the edge.
Mhm.
It might turn out that Connor Watson loses a couple if they move stuff around to give both Whyte and Linu minutes, but I'd say that probably doesn't happen so much because, well, they don't have heaps of hooker options other than Moriarty as backup.
Mm. Yeah, he's in the rookies as well. Yeah, that's the thing. They just haven't added anyone, have they? And they've got De La Salle there to come on and play some minutes. But it's probably the big win for the starters. And I suppose if you're looking at that hooking position with Watson, it's likely to be big minutes for him, which we'll get into in a sec. And the two edges playing big minutes. There's space for minutes there for these middles for sure. If they're going to go pretty low on their bench minutes, so someone's definitely going to benefit, and that's why, yeah, as you said, it could be Lenu and it could be Nafahu White as well. See what Wong, hey, let's see if he kicks on this year. But Connor Watson made it 49.7. He ended up at a 670, which just looks even juicier, doesn't it? With that little bit of a drop or in prices, leading to that increase in buying power. But for him at that point, he's apparently he's only going to be a mid this year. What yeah, what can you say about that one? And then um, your thoughts on him as a player this year for fantasy?
Yeah, I don't get that. Like, surely the people running the game know that they're not just going to start with Moriarty and run him for like 60 minutes to start the year. They're just going to have to add him as dual when he's named there round one. So I don't really get it. Maybe they think he's going to magically start the centers like he moved there mid game when injuries happened. But
That
yeah,
was
so
frustrating.
that's one of the risks of Watson. Yeah, he's very versatile, so he can move around when there are injuries. That's probably the only thing stopping him from being really, really good. I would expect he does really big minutes most weeks. Even if he doesn't always get 80, I still think he's fine because they might move him through the middle rotation a little bit. Like Moriarty comes on for 15 minutes, that could just mean he goes to lock for 15 minutes and he scores well there as well. So I don't see many scenarios where it doesn't work out unless there's a few injuries and he gets moved around in the middle of a game. So I don't think he goes down. Like, surely he's got maybe up to 10 points of upside and the floor is where he is.
Hmm. Yeah, it feels that way. Like as you said, every year he's played hooker. It's been a PPM of over 0.75, and you just look at him off the interchange in a middle role at the Knights, or even when he first started with the Roosters. It's always just a really nice PPM. So they're the players we look for, isn't it? You know, when you're on there, when they're on that park, they're working hard. They're getting the business done. Whereas those guys that you're like, oh, bro, you're like a point 0.4 PPM. I need you to play 80, and if you don't, it's death. Whereas him, even if it was to be a 70-minute roll or a 75 like you've got there, then it feels pretty safe, and he will have that duel. But it's going to be interesting that, yeah, if it's named round one, we have to sit there, and if we're picking Watson, we've got to plug in another hooker at the same price as that's Watson, Jeremy Marshall Watson, whatever it's going to be. Who else is 49?
Wade
Robson.
Wade Egan's probably too cheap.
Robson's 49 as well.
Yeah,
There you go.
Robson. Yeah, that'll do. Well,
What's he
he'll
going
be
to?
Connor Watson next year, which is crazy. So maybe he can
Oh,
just be Connor
true.
Watson now.
Come on, Lock. Don't do me like that. What's it going to be? Yeah, Reese Watson. We're going to be calling him all
uh,
preseason. Or Connor. What's he going? Connor Robson. Connor Robson. Yeah, we'll
yeah,
pick
I
one.
tell you,
One will stick.
it's gonna be it's gonna be weird in round one with Dragons team running out like that, like Gutho and Holmes, both of us just like it looks wrong. What's happening? Go
Yeah,
away, come back.
yeah. It will be cool to see. Hopefully they do well. But mate,
Hmm.
the edges and that 13 with Butcher, it's probably hard to see him playing the big minutes. Like safety wise, it's probably a bit too much risk with that, even if he was to start.
Yeah, he was the one that moved a lot last year. Like
Mm.
even the year before, like Wong played like 8 games at 80 minutes at the edge to end the year, and like Nat Butcher was moved around. So he's really good and he can score really well. He's just that he's sort of the fix it guy as well as Connor Watson.
Mm.
I don't think buying him at a 47.8 average already when the role isn't dead certain with this team in flux, just look for elsewhere, I'd say.
Yep, definitely. And Bradley, just a little bit too hit and miss for us to be looking at him. And you've got him there as a, potentially averaging the 48 with sort of 3 points of value there, but then saying, please don't buy him. Tell us why, mate.
Because that value is mostly made up of him not being sin binned and having playing extra minutes and not having those demerits from there. Don't buy Victor Radley, please.
Yeah, ask Mitch and a few others how that one went last year. They said they had fun for half the ride, and I think that would mean they probably vomited at the at the end of the ride or when they got off. So it yeah can be fraught with some danger for sure. But someone that doesn't look as dangerous, Mr. Angus Crichton, a 54.5 average on his return to absolute superstardom last year. I still can't believe that you had Crichton that was almost out of the league, and then you had Watson who started the year in New South Wales Cup, and they both played Origin and played in integral parts last year. It was absolutely incredible, and they still couldn't win the comp. You had two guys come from the clouds, and there you go. But Gus, mate, what are your thoughts on him? And can we see him getting closer to 60 average this year?
I love him. He's one of those guys who, in the past, has been a 60 average, a 55 average, a 58 average. Like, he's one of the few guys that's been up there with Fafita for the last 5 years until that drop off when he kind of had those issues. So he's just a really good fantasy scorer. And if the Roosters don't know what to do and who to go to with this inexperienced or, shall we say, not rookie team, but one that hasn't really played together, I'd say he'll be doing a lot of work to try and be that attacking weapon because a lot of those huge scores that were coming probably like round 8-ish to round 15 last year were from Angus going through the line, getting a try, and then getting a try. He had a lot for a forward in that period, and it was
Oh,
absolutely insane. So if he becomes that guy again, that's where that 60 average will happen.
mm, yeah, it will be interesting. Can it happen from the jump with that new team? And that's the probably the main worry because yeah, you take out those interchange games and he's going to be up there, but do they when they price him, are they going to take that into account as well and give him that little nerf up to a 56 or something like that? We'll have to wait and see as well. I think, and I'll go through him when I go through all of the positions, that's for sure. But I think we'll leave it there with the Roosters, mate. How do you see them going this year? Are they still making the eight for you?
I I don't know. It depends how strong they start because at the moment, with the outs that they have, the lack of ins and the injuries, I probably have them riding into Origin like about 11th or something. Maybe, and then they're still going to have guys missing for Origin, quite likely, in Angus and Watson, maybe even Teddy. So once they've got a few players back, like Walker and maybe Cheese, and they've learned to play with these new players, I reckon they'll go on a run. Like they always go on a late season run. It'll just depend how far back are they and how well can they push at that back end to squeeze back in. That's what I reckon. I reckon they're going to come like I reckon I probably have them ninth to be honest. I reckon they just miss out.
Ooh. That will be big. The Roosters, good fun. All right, I'm just having a quick look at the private group chat. If you are interested in that, guys, all the info is in the description, and make sure you do hit subscribe and get that notification bell going because it's happening. It is happening. But apparently they can get in to the app, but looks like the prices are correct. They reckon, but the players are in the wrong position. He's got Cotter at center. Haas
uh,
is it
you
half
gotta
right?
love the website.
Payne Haas is at half right now, and Walsh is a
Let's go.
prop. So, um, but yeah, Josh has gone. Look at
Oh,
my mids. He must have Walshy in mids or something.
it, it's gonna happen halfway through the Dolphins or the Tigers game, isn't it? And we're gonna have to abandon ship and just stare at the prices of that team in the actual video.
True. We'll see how we go. We'll keep checking while we're doing them. We're gonna do all three tonight, guys, and hopefully we get a game. But if we don't, we'll get these videos out quick and it'll hopefully nothing will have changed too much for us and like oh someone's priced 100k up 100k down and our analysis is mute. Let's hope that's not the case, but let's leave the Roosters there and we'll get into the